to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon and I am a relationship expert, international speaker and best-selling author. I have decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news or on social media, the perception it is giving people is, in my opinion, wrong, and my aim is to talk about what really happens in the real world and talk about real people and real stories. We all do and go through various things that other people don't realise, because it's all very nice behind closed door and in front of a Facebook post, but exactly that, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So I want to kind of challenge the expectations that are currently being created for people who now have a really warped view of what a relationship is, in my opinion, obviously. So here today we have Lisa Johnson, and what we're going to talk about is actually domestic abuse in a marriage. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, not too bad.
Good. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 46 years old. I come from a normal family, normal working class family, really close to all my family, lots of friends. Was always really quite good at school, got good jobs. That's about it, really. Just a normal person.
Fair enough. So I know you are now remarried, but how did you meet your first husband?
Well, he wasn't my husband, actually. We weren't married, but we were together for 9 years. So common law marriage. I was working in a nightclub, funnily enough. Right. He came running up. Like straight away you sort of think,
Yeah. And how old were you then?
Sorry?
How old were you?
24 when I met him.
Okay.
So I was still, I travelled the world. I was working in a club, but that was my second job. I had a really good job as a PA. He sort of come running up to the bar, and it's that instant attraction, that physical attraction. We just started talking and swapped numbers, and sort of that was it. And then met up a couple of days later. Okay, so how was it to start off with? Obviously, quite nice. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't. Yeah, it was. I mean, I really fancied him. That's the thing. So, it was full on. It was quite sort of intense, really, really quickly. I think it was time as well. I was ready for that. I've been travelling around the world. I'd come back and was living at my mum's. Really wanted to move out. He had his own flat. So I think we did move I didn't move in with him, quickly. But we spent a lot of time together very quickly. Okay. And I think it was a case of timing more than anything. But I was really happy. I was happy in my life and everything. And this was just sort of the icing on the cake, really. A lovely, good-looking boyfriend.
Fair enough. So when did things start to go wrong?
Oh, quite soon, to be honest. A few months down the line, we were already living together, and that's when the violence started straight away.
Okay. So was he jealous? What were the triggers?
When I didn't do something he wanted, really. It was just, if he didn't get his own way, if he felt threatened in any way, if he felt insecure. Obviously, like I said, I had a really good job. I had lots of friends. I travelled the world. I was quite confident in myself, and I think any time he felt threatened that I might, if I was going out for friends or anything, that would really, start it off. And it was just, there's one time, the first time was, I think, when I was chatting to some guy in a club we were in, not about anything, we were just chatting. He'd been to Australia. I'd just not long been back from Australia. So we were just chatting, and we got home that night and I stayed at his, and he really kicked off. Wasn't violent, but there was something dodgy, and alarm bells. There was literally a lot, like they say, but there was alarm bells in my head. And I got up and said, you know what, I'm going to go. I could tell there was something not quite right. I've never, not from a violent, my past has been sort of, a great childhood, and so, but then at that particular moment, all his electric went out where he hadn't put any electric on, and I stayed, sorted it out. As I stayed, I should have walked out that particular time, a couple of months in, but didn't. And then about 3 months into the relationship was when he first pushed me over. And I couldn't quite believe it, to be honest. I was like, blimey, no one's ever come at me in a violent, aggressive way ever in my life. So I couldn't quite believe it, that had happened, really. And then from then on, within a couple of months, he'd beat me up badly. So it happened really fast.
And how were you feeling in yourself? Did you think, really I must go? What was going on in your head?
Well, I couldn't quite believe it.
Yeah.
I was always one of those people that had said, "Oh, if a guy ever hit me, I'll be straight out that door," and it just doesn't happen like that. Because then they're sorry, and then they're all vulnerable because they're upset. Well, in his particular case, he was upset, and I sort of thought, oh right, well maybe it was a mistake. The particular first time, maybe that was a mistake. And then it happens a few more times, and by the time you realise that this isn't a mistake, this is like something, there's really something wrong here. You're so, well, in my case, I was so scared already. He was already controlling my actions. So I know that sounds really powerless, but I can't explain the fear. Keeps you engulfs you and is part of your everyday. And so within a very short space of time, I just couldn't work out what was going on and how to stop it. So I carried on.
And I think, you see, one of the, I might be wrong here, I've not done enough research into it, but a lot of the time when people are abusive, I found that they normally pick supposedly strong women.
Yeah.
I was in a situation myself where I ended up in a very emotionally abusive relationship. And one of the things that really got me was, God, I'm quite a strong person.
Yeah.
And here I'm sat on the floor in the kitchen crying because I don't know, and I start to think it's my fault.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, because like you, there were alarm bells like from the beginning. Yeah. But then you started to think, this can't be real. Is it really manipulating me that much? Is it me? Have I done something wrong?
Yeah.
And I think, same thing. So, I mean, it was never physically violent with me. I've since found out that he has been physically violent with other people. So I was maybe just lucky. But,
well, I think more that you didn't, The thing is, it was really hard because I was with him for 9 years. And the first 2 to 3 years were extremely violent. Quite badly violent. And after that, it wasn't as violent, physically violent. But that's because I never gave him the opportunity. I didn't let him get to that stage where he needed to be violent with me, because I do everything he said. There was literally, I remember once thinking, oh, do you know what? He's really changed. He's not hit me for however long. And I thought, what are you talking about? It's because you've not given him any
you're his puppet, as it were.
Yeah. I honestly, so the violence was his way of initially controlling me, but then the emotional and the actual control he had over me was further reaching.
So what was he like with other people?
Well, he was charming, particularly with the girls, obviously. He was, he seemed to make an effort for everybody and seemed to be liked by everybody and was always everybody's best friend. But funny enough, he never had really many close friendships. I think he took as much as he could from everybody, and once they'd had enough, they'd go away. Obviously, I couldn't, because obviously I was more engulfed in the relationship, because it was it was a physical sort of relationship. And obviously then I had a child with him 2 years later, so we also had a child. So, I couldn't just get out. But it was funny, he never had very close relationships with his family either. So on the surface, he comes across as charming, but he would always take what he needed and then drop him, or people would sort of take their distance, like move away from him, sort of. Yeah.
And one of the things that when I left that guy, after he stages on suicide in my lounge, pretty much, a lot of people, friends, said to me, God, we knew there was something not quite right about him, but we didn't want to interfere. In fact, if I had £1 every time someone said that, was it the same thing for you? Do you think friends and family were concerned, but there's that fear of interfering?
Oh, yeah. Well, without meaning to be too graphic, I was covered in bruises most weeks, and not just to the body, to the face and head, and they knew, and plus I'd run away so many times.
Yeah.
I'd phone my mum and she'd come and get me, and then I'd go back, and everyone knew, even to the point of the job I was in at the time. I was a PA to an MD, and he called me in one day and said to me, "Look, Lisa, do you want any help? I'm here if you want to help." And obviously I couldn't get anyone involved because I was too scared, not only for myself, for what he would do to the people that helped me as well. So I had a lot of fear.
So did you sometimes think, I'm just going to run away? Or are you threatened that if you did leave him?
Oh, he'd kill me. Yeah. Yeah. If I ever left him, particularly once I'd had my son, if I ever, can you go? If I ever run away, he'd say he'd kill me. I tried, there was a couple of times, obviously there was the last time when I got away for good, but prior to that, I'd gone to a refuge once before. Lasted 2 to 3 weeks. He found out where I was through a friend, because he obviously had manipulated her to tell her where I was. She didn't actually tell him. She passed me a letter from him, which was enough. And then I went back. I'd pressed charges. Well, the police had pressed charges on him because I'd managed to get out in the middle of a row. But because my child was there, I called the police. So they pressed charges. So we went, and he got charged, but I still went back after that. Constantly trying to run away. One of my memories. Why do you think that
is? Why do you think, despite the fact you kind of got away, did you still love him? Did you still think that he was going to change, or was it just for fear?
No, it wasn't just a fear. I thought he was going to change. I sort of knew deep. I don't know. I knew deep down that he did love me in a way he'd never loved anyone else, and that he also loved his son. And to be honest, I didn't particularly want to be a single parent. Not to make it worse, but I had a mixed race child. I had a mixed race child, so I didn't want to be a typical. I don't mean the stereotypical single white young woman with a mixed race child. I just didn't want to conform to that. I didn't allow myself to accept that that's what I was, and that's what I should have been. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong in that at all, but I had this real stereotypical image of like, like you said before, this isn't me. I'm intelligent, I've got good job. I did have good jobs. Obviously I got fired because,
but I think sometimes it's for judgment as well. Judge us. That's what, when I said in my introduction, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. Expectations of what goes on behind someone else's closed door. You've got the perfect relationship and this, that, and the other, where actually you just don't know.
No, you don't. To be honest, it wasn't all bad. I had some good times. There's feelings there. I think this is what people don't understand is, I know, yes, it is abusive relationship, but it is still a relationship. And it's all you know. And it's all I knew for 9 years before I left. So you go, like, you leave and you sort of think, oh my goodness. And it's almost that familiarity that you're craving because you're feeling so vulnerable. You just go back because you crave what you know. Because it makes you feel more comfortable. As hard and as painful and as fearful as you are, you crave what you know in that, when you're feeling vulnerable. So I think that's what drove me back more than anything. I just want to do what was right by my son, to be honest.
It's not easy to leave a relationship at the best of times anyway. If you've got kids together, it's even worse. And if there's something like this thrown in the mix,
Yeah. And I mean, this is what I think people don't realise. You're in a relationship. It's not as simple as, there's some person that's hitting you, so you should leave. You're sort of emotionally involved in that person, so you can't just cut them out your life. Well, you can, because I did, but it's very, very hard to.
Was he ever violent towards your son?
Yeah.
And what did that make you feel? Was that like what triggered leaving?
To be honest, I was sort of blissfully unaware until we left and my son got counselling. And obviously the counsellor doesn't let you know what you talk about. He was 7. But the counsellors, the letter that was sent to the court was hard hitting. I didn't know.
How did you feel at that point when you found out?
Well, I knew the control was there. And there's been a couple of things that had happened. One in particular was a couple of weeks before I actually left for the refuge. So that's what was that. And there was a couple of times where I just sort of thought, like, the look on my son's face doesn't look, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So I had inclinations, and then there was one time where I was out, and when I come back in, my son had a big bump on his head. And, I just thought something wrong. The way his dad was acting wasn't right. He was quite panicky. And then the next day, my son said to me, we were brushing our teeth, and he's like, "Oh, Dad done this, don't you?" And like, my heart just broke. Because I sort of knew. But do you know what? You can't, it's so typical. I was just thinking, a lot of times I was just thinking, I was looking everywhere, and everywhere I could see couples and people with their children. I'm thinking, they don't look right. I'm sure they're abusing that child. And my head was so full of abuse. I thought this was the one time I thought it was me in my walked way, because I've been abused so badly by him. I thought he was on his son, but then I thought, God, no, he can't. He loves him. You can tell, to the point of obsession. This was the trouble. And so that morning I went and spoke to the school. I went into the school and I said, "Oh, he's told me that his dad's done this." And that was a cry for help, if ever I've heard one. I didn't know at the time. Yeah. And they just said, "Oh, don't worry. They often blame their parents when they slip up." So I thought, no way, this is me. This is my problem. I'm pushing onto my son. So I thought it was me, in a way, that was seeing these things that weren't there. So almost when the counsellor's report come, I knew.
Yeah.
But that was the proof, So, yeah, it's hard not to judge when I say that. But if I knew something had been going on, but you've got so much going on in your life, you're trying to survive, and you're trying to keep your children safe.
Exactly.
As safe as possible, and leaving. Yeah, I just didn't know what I was going to do until I phoned, obviously, Women's Aid.
So how did you make the break? Well,
initially, so my son was 7. So when he was 2, I'd initially gone to a refuge. So I was aware of the process. That I went via Women's Aid. So I phoned and found where there was a space. So anyway, obviously he was 2. I'd gone back, and then 5 years later, I decided this had happened with my son, that he'd got this hit on the head. There was a few things. We'd been on holiday, and there's a couple of things that weren't. I thought, I don't know. My son's not responding. If we ask him a question, he's thinking before he responds, and that was the main thing that got me. I thought, he's becoming a puppet just like me. He's not letting himself. So anyway, I made the decision to go. Phoned Women's Aid on the Monday, and I went round to my mum's house on that Monday and told her and said, "Look, I'm going on Thursday," and that was it. Thursday, I was gone.
So did you go with no address or nowhere to be found?
No.
Or did you just
I found Women's Aid, and they told me where I could go. They gave me 2 options. One wasn't an option; it was still too close.
Yeah.
So I took the second option. Didn't know where it was. I'd never heard of it before. I was just London. I was in the London bubble. I didn't really hear of anything else. And they said, on the Monday, they said, "Right, phone me when you're ready to go." So the Thursday morning, I got to work. I'd already told the people at work. Phoned my son's school to say I'm coming back to pick him up in a second, explain what's happened. Phoned them up and said, "Right, I'm going today."
Yeah.
I'd had a bag with me that was hidden at home, with a few of my son's bits and pieces in, just to help him and my passport and things like that.
Yeah.
And so they said, "Right, get a train to here and call this number when you get there." And that's what I did. They couldn't come and get me because there was no staff, but they sent a cab.
Yeah.
And they took me to the refuge, and got there and sort of broke down, crying, really. Relief, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you feel then?
Yeah, do you know what? This time I knew I was staying for good. Yeah. I knew it. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. And do you know what was the defining moment? I didn't leave him a letter trying to explain why I went this time. Every other time I'd left, I tried to give him a letter to try and make him see what he'd done and why I'd left. And this time I didn't leave anything, because I thought, you'll work it out on your own. And I didn't feel he deserved an explanation. He knows. He didn't, you know. And so and I knew then I was gone for good. I can't explain it. It was something different that day, that time to all the other times. I was ready, yeah.
Have you ever heard from him, seen him again?
Yeah. He sort of was still emailing me on and off while I was still living in the refuge. He didn't know where I was. All my paperwork went from a different area, just to keep us safe. And he just, after all the court case and everything, he wasn't allowed any direct contact or anything. And yeah, he said, "Oh, please, I need to see my son one last time."
Yeah.
So I met him at my mum's house, where he obviously knows where my mum's live. He bricked all her windows before the court case. But he, like I said, we were all there, all my family and that were there, and he quickly popped in to say goodbye to his son, and then went, and we've not seen him since.
Okay.
So that was 12 years ago. My son, he's 20 now, nearly 20. So he heard from him on and off via my messenger, via my email. He's not had any direct contact. And then as my son sort of got older, sort of 16 plus, I think he spoke to him on the phone a couple of times, and that was it.
But he's got no real wanting to meet him, or?
Do you know what? I don't know. No, I don't think he does. He's had the option. Like he was 18 a couple of years ago. So when
they could have done whatever they wanted.
Yeah. And I said to him, and there was sort of contact made. And I said, look, if you want to go and see him, do. But I said, but do you actually want to know what sort of person he is before you meet him? Mm-hmm. Because I was worried. I didn't want him to meet him, obviously, but I was worried that was because of my insecurities and not the best for my son. So I felt like that he needed to make his own decision. But I think in order for him to make his own decision, I thought I should tell him sort of the severity of what went on. Not to put him against him. I don't want to do that. Like I say, he can make his own decision. He's an adult. But I wanted him to make an informed decision. Yeah. Because he's a manipulative arsehole, to be honest.
Fair enough.
I don't want. Yeah, I just didn't want him going there and thinking. I don't know whether this is selfish or not, but thinking, oh my God, he's great. He's a lovely, because that's what he comes across as. He's like, he might have changed. I've not seen him or spoke to him for 12 years. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've got no particular needs to see him or speak to him. I don't know what I'd do if I did. But
I think at the same time, your son will remember.
Yeah.
What happened? He might have been young, but he does know it's not right. Yeah,
he knows it's not right. He does say the majority of times, because the thing is, I was very careful not to badmouth him. I know, wrongly or rightly, I didn't want my son, feeling, the problems that are associated with having a parent that's a wrong one, basically. Yeah. And I didn't want him growing up with them problems that are associated. So if we spoke about him, we generally spoke about our holidays and our good times together, because I wanted him to have that sort of memory of him.
Not bad ones.
And to be fair, it was only 8-9 months ago that we had this chat about, look, I need to tell you a few things just to let you know. He was like, Mum, I didn't have a clue that it was as bad as that. And, you've done a great job.
Yeah. And you have,
Which was okay, there's so much guilt that goes on, and that was insane. It's all right. I've done the right thing.
Exactly. And, you need to be proud of yourself for that. Because
I am now, which is why I feel I'm ready to get my story out there, because I'm not ashamed of what went on. Mm-hmm. It wasn't my fault. I know I stayed there for 9 years, and I put my son through 7 years of not the best first 7 years of his life. Mm-hmm. But he's an amazing person.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I've done all right.
And I think, this is why I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
If there's someone out there listening right now and they're thinking that they can't leave and they can't do it, then you can just show them, just by listening, that, you found it hard. It took you a few goes, but you did it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy, I'm sure, but, you're so much happier now, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't easy. I'm not I'm not. However, you can, if you're like, if people are listening to this, that you can't, like, you can't explain that freedom that comes with being truly free
Yeah.
and being able to be
And not
yourself
controlled.
and be able to be the mum that you've always wanted to be. It's hard, don't get me wrong. The day I left, I wasn't automatically this mum, perfect mum. I wasn't. I've made mistakes, you know, through your own development of getting over these things, obviously. But you're free. It's your choice. You've got your choice. You can make choices again.
Yeah.
Because I mean, for example, we went food shopping the first time. My son didn't know what chocolate he liked, and I didn't know what to buy.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't been told. You know, and just even the freedom of going to a shop. You know what? I want tuna tonight.
Yeah.
And being able to have something you want to eat, or like, I know it sounds silly, but having a bath at the time I wanted to have a bath. Yeah. I know that sounds really silly, but the freedom.
Not walking on eggshells all the time.
Yeah. And you know what? The train ride from when we ran away is one of the best days of my life. Like, we had such a good time on that train. Because I'd already felt free. I hadn't told him. I said we were going on holiday for a couple of weeks and not to tell anyone. And particularly if you spoke to your dad, don't tell him really where we are. You don't need, you know. I'd sort of geared him up a little bit, or even said that he probably wouldn't speak to his dad for a couple of weeks. But I said, but it's fine, you know, we're going. So, but it was the best train trip of I can still remember it now. We were laughing and joking, you know, and I suppose that was already that freedom coming.
So what would you say to somebody who is currently going through it, listening to this, thinking, I don't know if I can? Maybe it is me, maybe it wasn't her, but maybe it is me. What would you say to them?
You can. You definitely can. We all, you know, however, you have to do it when you feel ready.
Yeah.
You don't, like, lots of your friends and that are very well meaning, and your family saying, just get out, just leave. You will only get out and stay out once you're ready. And to make yourself ready, you need to be aware of all your options out there. The Refuge is a great place to start off. Mm-hmm. And all your support options, you know, like Women's Aid and people like you, and like read how a relationship could be. This isn't how a relationship should be.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm married now.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you what's happened since then.
Well, yeah, dodgy road, relationship wise. This sounds really cliche, but the more I done for myself, the better I was attracting better people.
Yeah.
I did, when I moved out of the Refuge, I got involved with somebody else who was abusive. Mm-hmm. So I made the classic mistake. However, I know this sounds really ridiculous, not as abusive. Yeah. So obviously that's how I justified it. He's fine. I still speak to him and see him. Not in a, you know, I've got a child with him, so I've got 2 children, both from abusive partners. Mm-hmm. But the set was fine. He's dealt with his issues. Yeah. He still sees his son. Completely different ball game. And, you know, I really respect him for what he's taken it on board and sorted himself out. Really do. So he was, and my relationship got gradually better until I realised, do you know what, I'm still getting hurt, and I think I need to be on my own. Yeah. You need to be on your own and work on yourself. Yeah. Really do. Because then I made this decision. I worked on, you know, it was thinking, actually, I'm happy. I've got my 2 kids. I'm doing all right. Got a job. And then I met this person who is my absolute prince. He's my husband now. And he lets me be me. Yeah. It's the most freeing relationship ever. He loves me for me. We've never had an argument. You know, as much as when he first said, "Oh, I don't argue," I'm like, "What?" Because the thing is, you're so used to ups and downs.
That's right.
Like, it's okay. Like, it's not boring to not have any arguments. It really isn't, because that's what I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. He supports me in everything I do. He tells me I'm beautiful every day. He tells me I'm amazing every day. You know, it gets a bit sick. I get a bit sick of it, to be honest now. But no, all joking aside, there are relationships out there that give you the freedom to be you. Yeah. A relationship should be able to should give you this freedom to be the person you truly are. And if it doesn't, do you know what, it's probably not right. And do work on yourself. Be happy in yourself.
And I think this is a relationship that we have with other people. are a direct reflection of a relationship that we have with ourselves. So
Oh, exactly. Like I said to you, each time sort of I met quite a few, to be honest, you know, I was adamant. I knew there was something out there. I knew there was something missing and that there must be something out there for me. And it used to frustrate me when I'd see everyone else happy and in these relationships. Like, what was wrong with me? Why can't I be? And then I sort of, the more you do for yourself and for your children, if you've got children, the better you feel about yourself. And then the more respect you have for yourself, the more you love yourself. I'm not saying I'm fantastic. Well, I suppose I am in a way. But you have to feel that within yourself.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, it's not an easy thing to do.
No, but a lot of people
just wake up and decide you're happy.
To get that from somebody else.
Yeah.
They have to feel it in their heart first.
And you do that literally one step and one day at a time. Yeah. Because the person I've attracted now, my husband, I can't stress how much this relationship frees me to be me. You know, it's really, I think I've come from the worst of the worst to the best of the best. I really do. And I do think that's through working on myself. It's as a result of working on myself.
Do you have any regrets?
I regret I ever met him. but that's never, obviously you're never going to go back. You've got to make the best of what it is. Do you know what I regret most, and I've never really admitted this to anyone, is that I was so desperate to be in a relationship that I sort of got together between my abusive relationships, and now I'll probably introduce my children to a few men. Yeah. And I probably shouldn't have done that. I've probably done that too soon. I think so I was so desperate for this perfect relationship. And to be loved. And to be loved, exactly, and to be loved, and to be a family, to be a proper family. I was a single parent, you know, and so I've probably, been out on a few too many dates, but then look at where I've met this amazing person. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I think my main regret is probably introducing, let's say 2, maybe 3 men to my children before I should have. Fair enough. You know, I don't know. Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And like I say, all's well that ends well. And I think as a result, I've learned not what to go for. And to be honest, when I met my husband, he wasn't my usual type at all. And I thought, this is a good thing. For once, I was in the right frame of mind, because I was good about myself, thinking, actually, do you know what? The fact he doesn't want to meet my children after a few months, that's a good thing. Yeah. You know, the fact he wants to make sure our relationship is right before we meet each other's children, that's good. Yeah. You know, the fact he doesn't want to sleep with me on the first night, that's a good thing. So, it wasn't my usuals, and I sort of had to be very, objective when I was with him, because I didn't think straight away, oh, blimey, like he is like, something else. I didn't think that. It was a slow burner, and we've become friends first, you know. And
that happens more often than not, you know. Yeah.
But it was a respect. This is the thing, he was showing me respect, and I didn't recognise it as that. Yeah. I thought, why doesn't he want to get to go sleep with me?
You'd not experienced that before.
Yeah.
I mean, you only really, recognise something if we felt it. So.
Yeah. And like you know, I think a lot of people don't recognise that as a good relationship. They think of a relationship is all like, oh, but he loves me. Oh, we had this massive row, but he loves me. And we have the most amazing time in bed together, and this, that, and the other. That isn't what makes a true relation, a proper relationship. Yeah. And I think that's what, a lot with yourself, that's what everyone needs to realise, what a proper relationship is, because I think the media, films, and everybody
they're not hoping at all.
Thrive on drama. They thrive on drama, and that's not what it should be about.
No.
We've not had, in the 5 years I've been with him, we've not had one drama at all. Yeah. And that's it. I'm here.
There you go. Well, Lisa, thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you.
That's okay. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and if there's anyone listening to this, as we said, and struggling, just go to Women's Aid or Google, refugees, whatever, but at least find out the information so that you then know that you've got options.
Yeah, definitely. Women's Aid website is really good.
Yeah.
Very informative. If you can get on there safely,
Okay.
you know, as long as they can access it safely, then yeah, it's a good thing.
Thank you so much. And
no, you're welcome.
We'll speak to you soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Sophie. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.